recommendation is that we have retained a bond counsel expert to provide us technical assistance over the next few months. And again, my report as to what's going on or what has gone on, there's been extensive discussions and work moving towards the May deadline, and that's been primarily what I've been doing and working with Renaissance and other departments. So that's the reason for the request. And I don't know, David, if you have anything else to add to that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the recommendation for the special counsel is somebody that is not with the law firm that we have retained for our general legal services, but will be working under the supervision of David and throughout the process. So that's why we believe it requires a separate action by the board.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why would we have bond counsel? I would think that would be the city council and the city's purview.
Well, because there are types of bonds, just a way of example, I mean, it's been discussed at many meetings about TIF financing. TIF is a bond instrument is used as part of that, so that's not part of not that the city and finance board wouldn't be involved, but it's something that would be more specific to the project. And so the feeling is to have this expertise available to us for that. And any of us recommendations or proposals for anything that involved bonding that was somewhat outside of the normal city bonding process? That's why.
Is there any reason? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The other thing is, the city is going to be looking to the BDDC to take the first pass at reviewing the financing package that's going to come down from Renaissance downtown. And when you start talking about financing for a project like this and some of the concepts that have been discussed so far, those can be very complicated and intricate financing mechanisms. And I understand, well, it's not an absolute certainty. The city's bond counsel themselves may be involved in those discussions and giving some advice to the city about the financing proposals that they're expecting to see. And we felt it would put the BDDC in the best position to be able to make a recommendation if they had their own expert, their own informed counsel that was going to be reviewing these proposals and giving you independent advice.
As the chairman, were you involved in the discussions?
Yes.
You said you're in agreement.
Yeah, and if we don't end up with a proposal that involves bonding, then we're not going to use the bond counsel.
Okay.
Could I just ask one question? What are the pros and cons of using the city's bond counsel as opposed to having a separate bond counsel?
Well, because the city is going to be having the bond counsel review it and make their own recommendations to the city as to what's going on. And again, they're going to be involved, but the line of first review is still going to be the Bristol Downtown Development Corporation. And that's why we felt it was in your best interest as board members to make an informed decision about whether or not you were comfortable with the plan that's eventually presented to you, and you were going to recommend that plan to the city, to have your own counsel who's going to look at that and give you your own independent advice.
Yeah, I use the analogy of the establishing of the land price through the appraisal process. As you recall, that information in terms of the opinions came to us first, and this board had to make a decision to refer it on to the council for consideration. So this keeps in the process all along for the last 3 years or more. It's always been understood that the DEC would take an action which would then move on to the council, and what other boards in the city would address that. I mean, things like zoning and site plans, we would offer an opinion even though we don't have the approval process. So it became part of the public record. So I think it is consistent with the flow of how it's worked.
We also routinely utilized our own counsel in the negotiation of the preferred developer agreement before we made that recommendation onto the council. The city had its counsel, we had our counsel to protect our interests.
Ed, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, our
I'm sorry.
interests are at this point separate from the city. They might have been different. There might have been some because we were establishing a relationship with this council also, the city, at that time. But here, it just seems to me there's one set of interests. Uh,
There is one set of interests, but I still think that in order for us to make an informed recommendation to the city council, we need to do our homework and do our due diligence and say to the city council, based upon everything we know about the proposed financing for this deal, including the bonding, we are recommending that the city approve the deal. It's still gonna go to the city council, the finance board is still gonna have their own bond council, but, you know, personally, I found having Jory Andrews involved in the PDA process and the real estate discussions up front was immensely helpful to us in drafting the PDA and then recommending to the city that the city adopt it. So you're right, it's the same parties, but by the time it got through the BDDC, through the city council, the Board of Finance got involved, the city's bond council for the Board of Finance got involved, we'd be pretty far along in the process with a recommendation that this board hadn't fully vetted. So that was my only interest in having an education and having bond counsel up front so that we could make a more intelligent and more informed recommendation to the city council.
Well, figuring that we're already $7 or $8 million down the road, yeah, what are we talking about really, $5, $10, $20,000 max? And it depends on whether you use the guy or not.
Yeah,
or the firm.
I would anticipate that it is gonna be primarily review of proposals presented by Renaissance Downtown. So it isn't gonna be actually, you know, coming up with alternative strategies. It's a review of materials.
The lawyer's not gonna be writing documents.
Correct.
And again, you also raised a critical point, but this is just putting you in the position of being able to use that counsel if you get a proposal that you need to use that type of counsel for. We don't, it would be pure speculation at this point as to what type of proposal you're gonna get from Renaissance, but we wanted, the BDDC to be in a position to be able to, you know, we're coming up on some deadlines, and we didn't want the, corporation not be able to act because they had to convene a meeting and they had to get everybody together to then go out and get counsel. It may be, again, when you get the proposal, it's something that you don't need bond or finance counsel to review. I think that's unlikely, but then it may just be a cursory review. But again, it gives you all of the options that you need without expending other resources, calling special meetings, doing things like that to react quickly to what you're going to get.
But you're gonna have to put it out to bid, right, through Roger Rousseau?
That was my question. The lien contained, you guys were Levy and Droney at the time.
Yep.
We had to go out to bid for your services. If we're not gonna use someone at your firm, do we have to bid this?
I don't believe so. I'll double check that, but I don't believe so.
Okay, can you double check that?
Yeah.
Okay. And who, you're recommending?
Joe Vitale. Joe Vitale actually used to be at Levy and Droney. He did not join Hinckley Allen, so Joe is independent, but he's familiar with the project. Joe has years of experience. He's approved bond counsel with the state of Connecticut. He's done a lot of work with a lot of municipalities. He's familiar with those types of financing deals and those types of vehicles. This would not be something where he's coming in trying to learn the background or the playing field, so to speak. He's been doing this for years. I believe right now he's at the MDC's bond counsel. So he has a great wealth of experience in this area.
Eddie,
Yes.
sorry.
Nope, go ahead, Jim.
Eddie, what do you think of all of this? Your opinion, I should say.
John, I think, as we've said all along, you folks are the first people that have to make some decisions. Pursuant to the preferred developer agreement, you have some very detailed analysis to do. Independent review is probably the most appropriate thing for you folks.
Thank you.
And I should point out in the budget that was approved for this fiscal year, we have a line item of professional services budgeted at $10,000. So it isn't a new item within the budget. It's something that, again, is in the budget with an allocation.
Can I add one thing? I would say bond law is a real specialty. So you're not gonna find anybody practicing in Bristol who's a bond counsel in all probability. So,
Have we
Not a
received
bad
a
idea.
proposal or a rate structure from Attorney Patel?
No, but I could get one from him.